The billion-dollar hole that wasn't there. The Wirecard collapse. Welcome back to System Breech, where every system has a weakness and every secret has a price. June 18th, 2020, Frankfurt, Germany. One of the most celebrated companies in European finance announces that 1.9 billion euros, roughly a quarter of its entire balance sheet, is missing. Not stolen, not lost, missing. As in, it probably never existed. The auditors had been signing off on the books for 11 years. The regulators had been protecting the company from its critics. And the man who may have known everything vanished the same week and is now believed to be operating inside Russian intelligence. This is the Wirecard collapse, the largest accounting fraud in German history. And the system didn't catch it. The journalists did. To understand how 1.9 billion euros disappears, you first need to understand how a company worth 28 billion euros gets built on nothing. Wirecard was founded in 1999, a German payment processing company, the kind that handles the invisible infrastructure behind every time you tap your card or click Buy Now online. By 2018, its stock was trading at nearly 200 euros per share. Its market capitalisation had reached 28 billion euros. It had joined the DAX, Germany's blue-chip stock index, the equivalent of the Dow Jones, making it the first fintech company ever admitted to that club. Analysts at Goldman Sachs had the stock on a conviction buy rating as late as September 2019. Commerzbank analysts called the journalists investigating it fake news. SoftBank, the Japanese investment giant, had poured hundreds of millions into the company. Wirecard was, by every surface measure, the crown jewel of European fintech. The surface was the entire point. In the summer of 2014, an investigative reporter at the Financial Times named Dan McCrum received a tip. It came from a hedge fund manager who told him, simply, "There are some German gangsters you should look into." McCrum began digging. What he found? Inconsistencies in acquisitions, phantom clients, revenues that didn't add up, would consume the next 6 years of his life. His first article ran in 2015. It was careful. It raised questions without accusations. Wirecard dismissed it immediately. What came next was not a press release. Wirecard hired private investigators who set up surveillance across the Thames from the Financial Times London offices, attempting to intercept communications with long-range listening devices. Phishing emails were sent to McCrum and his colleagues, designed to compromise their devices and expose their sources. Short sellers who were researching the company were physically threatened. One was knocked unconscious on the streets of New York City. And then the German government got involved. In February 2019, after McCrum published a series of articles detailing suspected fraud in Wirecard's Asian operations, Germany's financial regulator, BaFin, responded. Not by investigating Wirecard, by banning short selling of Wirecard's stock for 2 months and opening a criminal investigation into Dan McCrum. The journalist investigating the fraud became the criminal. The fraud itself continued undetected. While McCrum was being investigated, Ernst & Young, one of the world's Big Four accounting firms, was signing off on Wirecard's books. Every year. For nearly a decade. Clean audits, year after year, despite the headlines, despite the whistleblowers, despite the FT's published evidence. Between 2016 and 2018, Fortune reported that EY auditors relied on screenshots and documents provided by Wirecard itself, rather than independently confirming bank balances directly with the banks holding the money. Confirming a bank balance independently is, as one senior auditor at a rival firm put it, equivalent to day one training at audit school. EY didn't do it, for 3 years running. The €1.9 billion was supposedly held in 2 escrow accounts at Asian banks, accounts used to guarantee risk management for third-party merchants. What EY was shown, documents and confirmations provided by a trustee. What EY never independently verified, whether those accounts actually existed. In April 2020, an independent audit commissioned by Wirecard itself, conducted by KPMG, found it could not confirm the existence of the funds due to insufficient documentation. Wirecard postponed its annual results, then postponed again, then a third time. On June 18, 2020, the day the audit was finally due, EY announced it could not sign off. The €1.9 billion was gone. As Wirecard would later admit, it probably never existed at all. Wirecard's stock dropped 60% in a single day. Within a week, it had lost more than 3/4 of its value. On June 25, 2020, Wirecard filed for insolvency. Germany's most celebrated fintech company, worthless in 7 days. On June 22, 2020, 3 days before Wirecard filed for bankruptcy, COO Jan Marsalek was fired. That same day, he booked a flight to Manila, Philippines. He told colleagues he was going there to recover the missing funds. He never arrived. Philippine authorities later found that someone had forged immigration records in Manila to make it appear Marsalek had entered the country. In reality, investigators from Bellingcat, Der Spiegel, and The Insider determined he had flown to Minsk, Belarus. From Minsk, he made his way to Moscow. Marsalek is Austrian-born. He had no obvious ties to Russia, on the surface. But subsequent investigations revealed he had been making short trips to Moscow on an almost monthly basis in the years before the collapse, using multiple passports, including a diplomatic passport he had no legal right to hold. According to an extensive investigation published by Der Spiegel, The Insider, PBS Frontline, and other outlets in September 2025, Marsalek is believed to have been recruited by Russian military intelligence, the GRU, as early as 2014. He has reportedly obtained Russian citizenship under the alias Alexander Nelidov. Between January and November 2024, phone data placed his device near the FSB's headquarters on Lubyanka Square in Moscow over 300 times. Photos obtained by investigators show him in military combat gear, bearing the Russian war symbol, the Z, in Ukraine. He is currently on Interpol's Red Notice, the international equivalent of a most wanted list, for fraud, market manipulation, and breach of trust. He has never been arrested. He remains, as of 2025, one of the world's most wanted men, living, apparently, in plain sight. Here is what makes Wirecard different from every other corporate fraud. It was not hidden from the system. It was reported to the system, repeatedly, for years. Short sellers submitted detailed dossiers to BaFin. Whistleblowers came forward. A major international newspaper published investigation after investigation with documented evidence. The system's response? Ban the short sellers. Investigate the journalist. Sign off on the audits. After the collapse, Germany's financial watchdog BaFin, which had protected Wirecard from its critics, was itself restructured and placed under greater oversight. EY, which had signed 11 years of clean audits, was banned by German regulators in 2023 from taking on new public interest auditing clients in Germany. The German regulatory body described EY's failures as grave and repeated. The criminal investigation against Dan McCrum, the journalist who had been right all along, was dropped in September 2020. He was named Journalist of the Year by the Press Gazette that same year. The people who told the truth were investigated. The people who certified the lie were fined. The man who may have orchestrated the entire thing is taking combat missions in Ukraine. 1.9 billion euros. Probably never there. Certified as real for 11 years, signed off by one of the world's most trusted audit firms, protected by Germany's own financial regulator. And when one reporter started asking the right questions, they tried to make him the criminal. Wirecard is not a story about a company that fooled the system. It is a story about a system that chose not to look. The money is gone. The man who knew where it went answers to a government that will never extradite him. And the auditors paid a fine. Every system has a weakness. Every secret has a price. If this episode made you question who is actually watching the Watchmen, share it with someone who still trusts the audit. System Breech drops every other Thursday. We'll see you in the dark.